Well, hello everybody, and thank you for joining us for our very special event, How to Win the £1 Million Startup Race. My name is James Schumark, one of the co-founders of the Startup Race, and I'm glad to have my other co-founder, Dan Drummond, joining us today. We're going to be talking about how to win the £1 Million Startup Race. Here's a little graphic that we created that we're trying to use to illustrate the process. I'm going to be going into each of those elements in more detail as part of the call. So I'm just really going to, as an entrepreneur myself, start with our pitching the £1 Million Startup Race. So what we found is that when entrepreneurs achieve what we call problem solution fit, they have a need that they want to raise investment so they can scale their startup. Problem with this is that they would normally ask a VC investor or an angel investor, but this takes 6 months of full-time effort, building relationships and pitching and filling in forms and everything else. But unfortunately, statistics tell us, and research done by the Kaufman Foundation for the World Bank, that actually 99% of entrepreneurs who try to raise investment the first time are rejected. So we created a competition that helps entrepreneurs win a £1 Million investment deal by outperforming their fellow startup founders, startup racers, by focusing 100% on selling their products. So you build the product, build your startup, and create value, demonstrate to the investors that you can actually execute and get stuff done and win an investment prize. So rather than trying to ride two horses, you just concentrate on one. So why should you take part in the £1 Million Startup Race? Well, here's some of the reasons. Learn how to optimize your marketing and sales processes. Track your weekly positions on our league table. Here's a little mock-up that I created before. And the idea is that each week the movement or the position on the league table will change. And if you are number one and you get knocked down to number 4 or 5, you can imagine that you'd be thinking, well, what can I do to be number 1 again? So the other point, or the other principle behind the startup race, is that you can be motivated by other startup racers to achieve more than you would on your own otherwise. And people often go to the gym with a friend, or they take part in a marathon with a friend, or even in a race, running race, there's lots of people on their heels, and that motivates people to run faster than they normally would. Here's a picture of me in Tunisia, and by having a friend riding along with me in the middle of nowhere, I actually rode faster than I normally would, and which is a good thing, because when you have 280 kilometers to do in the desert, it's you don't want to be taking your time too much. So one of the other benefits of taking part in the startup race is that our hope is that it will increase the value of your startup by 4x. So if you have let's say your startup is worth £1 million, by the end of the startup race, it will be worth £4 million, or maybe even 5. And of course, the ultimate goal is to win a £1 Million investment deal. We do think that you'll also benefit from massive publicity as the winner of the £1 Million startup race, and also gain the interest of observing investors if you're a runner-up. And we all know that with the X Factor, often the second and third and fourth places got good recording deals as well as the winner. And I would suggest that even if you don't win the startup race the first time, you can learn how to win the next time. And here's a picture of my bike stuck in the sand, which happened quite a lot, but I had to find the resilience to dig myself out and start again. So let's move on then. Who is the £1 Million startup race for? Well, I like to think that's for competitive entrepreneurs who want to raise investment, entrepreneurs who are generating 4,000 monthly recurring revenue, what we call MMR. And for those people who aren't currently generating that amount of money, we do have a preparation program so we can help entrepreneurs get ready to take part. The £1 Million startup race is also for angel and VC investors who want to find startups to support. Excuse me. Okay, and startup founders who want help in meeting the, as I said before, the 4,000 monthly recurring revenue entry criteria. And moving on to the entry criteria, who, again, it's to be able to take part in the startup race, you need to be turning over £4,000. And the idea behind this is that you've done a lot of the validation, the problems, a lot of thrashing around, experimenting to try to get enough paying customers. And it's this at this point when you're able to start generating significant revenue. And our goal, of course, is to get you to that 4 million, £5 million valuation in order to justify the £1 million investment prize. So entrepreneurs who want to take part have to be located in the UK, US, or Europe, or etc., wherever Xero or QuickBooks operates. And the legal status of the company needs to be a limited company or equivalent. The business type must be fast growth and can scale. So we're not really, I don't think anybody who's doing a long R&D project can generate enough money to win. Certainly they can benefit from the procedures that we're going to ask you to engage in, but you need to be able to make money quickly. And must have a business bank that works with Xero or QuickBooks, and be an ethical company, no porn, gambling, or drugs, etc. So why should you trust the startup race? So one of the reasons that we help people to trust us is talking about a motivation. Our goal is to help entrepreneurs build scalable startups around the world. And this is because we believe entrepreneurship is one of the most powerful forces for good. And we think about our congruence. Why are we the people to be doing this? Well, Dan and myself, we conceived the startup race. We want to gamify it. We're entrepreneurs ourselves, and Mike Hauser, who's also my co-founder, was a VC at Cornell University. And together we have 25 years experience of starting businesses around the world. My first startup was in 1991, importing motorcycles from Los Angeles. So thinking about our capabilities, it helps you to trust us. James and Michael, myself and Michael, sorry, we are level 2 certified Lean Stack coaches, which means that we can help you to understand how to use a tool on Lean Stack, the Lean canvases, traction roadmaps, some of the other resources there. And we've developed a world-class system that enables a startup to set and achieve its pirate metrics of acquisition, activation, revenue, retention, and referral. Our capabilities, again, we've mentored over 1,000 entrepreneurs on how to start a business so they do not become one of the 99% that fail, and how to be one of the 1% that successfully raise investment. So on to our results. So we've run over 140 events for entrepreneurs, and we ran our first successful startup in 2020, just before COVID came along. Actually, it was probably before that, I think, maybe in 2018. We started an accelerator program in lockdown, and we had over 1,000 applications for that, and we've supported 76. And the winner of our last startup race was in our accelerator program, and she was actually a female entrepreneur from India. And our runner-up, the second prize, or the second place, was a female entrepreneur from Mexico. So it's we're quite chuffed about that. And since we started our accelerator program, we've invested in about 7 UK startups. So here's a reminder of the process again, and I'm going to go into more detail into each of these steps. So the first one is to register your interest. If you go to our website, and you can see the URL at the bottom here, thestartuprace.com/register. You can see there's 2 options. And the purple option is for people who want to perhaps take part in our preparation program, so they can understand how to get to their £4,000 monthly recurring revenue. But we've got a button here for people who've already achieved that, and they can register their interest to take part in the startup race. So those buttons go to 2 different registration of interest pages. So once you've done that, then and you qualify, you want to take part in the £1 million startup race, it's all about preparation and getting ready. So the key thing is that you need to ensure you have a business bank account that works with Xero or QuickBooks. And this is because they're going to be drawing down the data from your business bank account into LivePlan through an integration that LivePlan has that takes data from Xero and QuickBooks. This helps us to manage the information at scale. And so we do need you to register for a free account with LivePlan. Normally you have to pay for using LivePlan, but we'll be giving you access to it for free. But it's also one of the world's best tools for entrepreneurs who want to raise investment. And the tools on LivePlan help you to create your cash flow forecast, your profit and loss, your balance sheets in an hour. And that obviously saves you money on using accountants. It's important that you make sure that LivePlan is drawing the data down from Xero and QuickBooks. And then we'd also suggest you register for a free account with LeanStack, and we'll be sending out the links to these resources once you've registered your information, registered your interest, and you're going to take part. We'd also like you to consider using a discounted CRM system. This is something that we use ourselves called Magic MRM. Our web developer and our tech support has this CRM system, and very often entrepreneurs can be paying a lot of money in different places, MailChimp, Calendly, Typeform, and so very quickly you can rack up a lot of expenses, whereas the Magic MRM has a lot of these things within it. So we'll be talking how you can benefit from that a little bit later on. So one of the other things that is important when you're preparing to take part in the £1 Million Startup Race is to understand what revenue means. And you can see on this image here, there's a number of different ways of defining revenue. For the purposes of the startup race, we're going to be focusing on cash sales, and receipts from trade customers. So these other items below: sale of spare assets, investment, personal funds invested, bank loans, government grants, receipts from factoring, they wouldn't really count as revenue. Okay, we're trying to encourage entrepreneurs to sell products and services to their customers, and the sales revenue must be sent from your business bank to Xero, QuickBooks, and into LivePlan every day. And so it's important to keep that integration live, because this is how we measure how much money you've made each week. So yes, ensure your bank account works with QuickBooks. Start using Xero QuickBooks itself. Oh, am I repeating some of these things here? I think I am. Sorry about that. Okay, so once you understand what revenue means, sign up for the £1 Million Startup Race rules, terms and conditions, and a mutual NDA. So this means that confidential information will be kept private for your benefit. Okay, and then we do charge a startup race entry fee, but we do offer a lot of value to cover that as well. So the third thing that you need to do is to what we call learn startup secrets. So one of these is to validate your value proposition via LeanStack. And one of the ways you do that is to validate your channels. How are you going to acquire your customers? Is it going to be Facebook, email? Is it going to be networks, organizations? And how much is it going to cost? So what is the customer acquisition cost? The resources on LeanStack help you to work this out. And the next thing then is to validate what's called your traction roadmap. Again, this is a tool on LeanStack that helps you to scope out how many people you need to acquire, activate, and get paying you each month over a 3-year period. It gives you what we call a line in the sand for you to see how well you're comparing against, and that either, if there's a gap, you need to work out why you're not meeting your goal. If you're beating your goal, then you think about, well, maybe I should increase it and earn more money. And so then you need to enter your pirate metric goals into our AAR tracker. And this also helps you to understand your conversion metrics. This is something that we've created for the people that took part in our Accelerate program. And you need to measure and update your pirate metrics daily in our AAR tracker. What we're tapping into here is the principles of target fixation. If you focus on your pirate metrics for the first 3 hours of every day, then you definitely are going to move the needle, and you'll be making a lot more money than you otherwise would. And then you need to work out how to beat your pirate metric goals. As I said before, the traction roadmap just gives you a line in the sand. It's what you really do. What happens in trying to sell your product? This is when you really learn what's happening. And as I said before, practice target fixation for the first 3 hours of every day. So the fourth thing you need to do is what we call optimize your value proposition. And as part of this, you need to validate exactly who your innovator and early adopters are. And these are people who are actively seeking a solution. And this is based on the law of diffusion of innovation, the bell curve. The first few people who generally sign up for a product are called the innovators. There's about 2.5% of them. The early adopters are people who go between innovator and early majority. And so essentially, this is about the first 10% of the marketplace. And what this means is that if you put your offer in front of 100 people, at least 10% of them are going to respond positively. But of course, you need to identify who these people are so that you can understand the trigger that causes these people to seek a solution. And what we like to teach in our program is that you're not necessarily in the education business. You haven't got enough time and money or energy to educate people. You need to limit the people that you engage with to those who have recognized that they have a problem. You're not in denial anymore or procrastinating and actively seeking a solution. And so when you put your solution in front of them, they're going to respond positively. Some of you have done to the email I sent out. So then, yes, you need to validate a valuable solution to their problem. And the key part of this point here is the word valuable. It's important that you don't sell anything that's too cheap. If it's Ash Murray on LeanStack teaches that £50 is a good minimum price for you to be selling. Of course, some of you out there might be making a lot more money than that. Your price point might be a lot higher. And so that's why it's important to have what we call a story pitch. And this starts off with a trigger. What has changed in the person's life? Maybe it's the economy, maybe it's a war around the world, maybe it's a virus or some sort of change in technology. And as we were talking before earlier on the call, there's a significant change to the diet of an animal that needs to have a remedy or a solution to prevent the animal suffering. So crafting your story pitch on LeanStack helps you to articulate this, which you can then add to your marketing materials. You can put it on your website, you can put it in your email, your Instagram, Facebook, or whatever. And the idea is that your story pitch resonates with a particular, with your customer. And I gave our story pitch at the beginning. And then you need to start marketing and selling your value proposition and analyze your acquisition, activation, revenue conversion metrics. And these are generally set at 10% on LeanStack. And this is where, again, you learn what's really important when you're trying to sell your value proposition. And you might start off with, what we call the minimum viable product, but with experimentation and the variations above, you can develop something that's a bit more what we call high fidelity. And, through experimentation, it's more effective and people respond more powerfully. So once you've optimized your value proposition, it's time to fixate on your pirate metrics. As before, target fixation, wherever we focus our mind, our eyes, our vision is where we end up. And, when I was taking part in my rally in Tunisia, almost every moment was taken up by focusing on where I wanted to go. If it was a big rock in the track ahead, and I looked at that rock, I'd be certain to hit it. Or if there was a big hole, I would be certain to go down the hole. And so I was almost consciously focusing on, assessing the land ahead and focusing on where I wanted to go to avoid the rocks and the holes. And again, we recommend you do this for the first 3 hours of every working day. Now, One of the key things that entrepreneurs forget to do is to pay their customer acquisition costs. It's I don't know why. I mean, entrepreneurs are very positive people, but to think that they can acquire a customer without actually paying the CAC costs is drifting into the realms of reality distortion fields, or we become victims of our own magical thinking. And so it's important that you do pay your customer acquisition costs. You need to work out what they are using LeanStack, running experiments on those channels. And if you're exceeding your acquisition goals, that should be the goal. And if you're not exceeding them, if you're not doing better than what Ashmore reckons the average is, then you need to think about, well, why am I not doing better than that? So if you're exceeding, the goal, of course, is to exceed your 10% acquisition to activation conversion metrics, also the 10% activation to revenue conversion metrics. This is the behavior of the entrepreneur that wants to build a successful business. Too many of us get caught up into adding more features or improving the features or just indulging our creative interests rather than actually learning about the engineering and the levers that we need to pull in our business to make money. So once you're optimized your pirate metrics and you've developed the habit of fixating on them, we have a point where the startup race begins. And when it does, and we'll probably, as soon as we've signed up 100 entrepreneurs who want to take part in the startup race, that's when it'll kick off. So you need to ensure that your Xero and QuickBooks connection to LivePlan works as live and active. And I would suggest you check your weekly position in the league table. Again, you get motivation from this tool. If you're number one, think about what you can do to stay number one. If you're not down to number 8, think about what you can do to be number 1 again. And update your conversion metrics tracker daily. Remember, this is a 12-month marathon, not a sprint. So if you do the right thing consistently, you can win. So once the startup race begins, we're on to the 7th point, where you need to work out how to maximize your revenue. And this starts by validating your pricing. And one of the tools or one of the principles that Ashmore teaches is that it's quite easy for you to do if you just look at existing alternatives. What do existing alternatives charge? Use the Lean Canvas on LeanStack for you to think about that and to note down the answers. And so then a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, oh, how much should I be selling and what's the right price? But if you just look at the existing alternatives, that problem is solved. It's one of the easiest hypotheses to validate. Then you want to validate your top 3 channels through experimentation. As before, I said it could be email, it could be networks, it could be Instagram, Facebook. It's important that you do validate the top 3 because the danger is that you spend money on marketing and a lot of the money you're spending is completely wasted because it doesn't have any impact whatsoever. So, and then we recommend you create what's called an entry level or a DIY service or product, and then create what we call an upsell or done for you price points. And the idea behind this is that the probability of selling to an existing customer is 60 to 70%, while the probability of selling to a new prospect is 5 to 20%. And the idea is that you acquire someone at a low price point, and then you upsell them, and you don't have to pay the CAC again when you upsell them to your another premium product. It's something, a service where you offer, where you do something for them rather than them having to do it themselves. And that's where you make a lot more, far significant proportion of your price point or your fee that you charge is profitable. And part of this is creating the ability to win your customers' trust. And there is a principle that we teach in the program called the speed of trust. It's all about your motivation. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you the person to be doing this? What is your congruence? What are your capabilities and what are your results? Just as I did at the beginning. And then recommend you automate your customer acquisition cost payments and upsell marketing messages. If you want to make lots of money, you need to have principles and processes that will do this automatically for you. And the goal, of course, is to make money while you sleep. So you go to bed at night and in the morning you've made thousands of pounds because you have a system and a process that helps people to find your solutions, and they pay money because they think it's really going to make a difference to their lives. And then prioritize CAC payments on acquisitions. So you might, if we think about acquiring people, the first time you acquire a customer, this is obviously you're going to pay more in the acquisition cost than somebody who's been using your services for a year or so. You don't actually need to pay the CAC again on them. So the next point then is to outperform the other racers. And I need to start off by saying in life, and what I found to be true is that the winner in any competition or anything in life is the one who wants to win the most. So there's in any competition, in any marathon, uh, or any sport, it's the winner is the person who wants to win the most. And I don't think Mike Tyson wanted to win his most recent boxing match. Scotland beat Australia in the rugby. I think they were really keen to win. They wanted to win, and so they did. I'd also say that the winner is the person or the team that invests the most time, energy, and money into the process. It's expensive to win, and winning, it doesn't come cheaply or easily. It's something you really need to work out. But also, the winner is the person who learns the quickest, and they are thinking every day, what do I need to learn? How can I improve this? Rather than procrastinating and drifting in a direction such as thinking about the features and polishing the product rather than trying to sell. And the winner ultimately is the person that generates the most revenue by the end of the race. So think about what you need to do to get to the number one position in the startup race, and then think about what you need to do to stay in the number one position. Behind this is the principle that necessity is the mother of invention. It is very difficult sometimes to feel this pressure. But ultimately, if you don't win this startup race, you can always win the next one. So it's, as I said before, it's a learning opportunity. And one of the reasons that startups fail the first time is because it's the first time they're trying to build a startup. So once you've outperformed other racers, then it's we're moving on to the last point here, how to win a £1 million investment deal. So to do that, you need to ensure you've generated more revenue than any other racer. You need to ensure that your Bank Zero LifePlan connection has worked daily. Ensure your balance sheet on LifePlan is accurate. Investors will be taking a very detailed look at your balance sheet, so it's important that all the information in there is accurate and up to date. And then you would meet with potential £1 million investors. So we're going to have a number of people who are acting as our £1 million investors because of the wide variety of investment types of investment. On this call today, we've got two completely different types of business, and investors have what we call an investment thesis. And so we'll be matching you with an investor who would be interested in your business model, and hopefully they'll be watching you and observing what you do because they get interested and want to follow you. And some of them might actually want you to succeed because they really like you as an individual. You're an entrepreneur that can execute and make things happen, and you're solving lots of problems. You're making money in the business, and you're creating something of real value. So so the point there is that you need to meet with potential investors and then pass their due diligence investigations. Now, nobody is going to invest in your company without doing their own checks and balances. So that's just a normal procedure that a lot of entrepreneurs have to go through at the start of the race. We'll give you a very clear steer on the mistakes to avoid making that could lead to you failing the due diligence. So yeah, we don't want to fall at the last hurdle because you did something that would disqualify you somehow. And then you need to consider and accept the investment term sheet that the investor is offering you. And one of the things that you'll be debating with the term sheet is the valuation of your business. So if you're going to get £1 million investment deal, what percentage of equity are you going to be selling in your business for that? And ultimately, once you've completed all the steps there, then you secure £1 million investment deal. Okay, finally, so we're going to move on to questions, but before that, I just want to say a note that we do reserve the right to change the details of the race as we sign up racers and investors. And until the £1 million startup race rules go live, we'll be finessing and iterating and making changes to the race. So that's it from me. Do we have any questions from anybody? I did rattle it through quickly. Anyone? And again, we can cut the questions out from the recording if you like, if you prefer.
Sorry, Gillian Gordon here. I think my one question would be, for when you're starting out, how old normally are the companies when they start the race?
Oh, well, that's a really good question. We initially, when we started doing the startup races, we had a restriction on the company age, and that they needed to be younger than 2 years, let's say. But for this startup race, we're not actually putting a time limit on how old the company is. So it could be 2 weeks, it could be 10 years. It doesn't really matter. The idea is that we're going to get a company to increase its valuation to justify £1 million investment deal. Does that answer your question, Gillian?
Indeed, it does. Yes, thank you.
Great. That's a great question. Thank you. Maybe Dan can ask me some questions or cover anything he thinks I might have missed.
I guess as a question, when's the proposed start date that we're thinking of?
So yeah, I mean it's we haven't got it'll be in 2025. Hopefully it's going to be in the first quarter, and I think my goal is to have 100 people who've registered to take part, and once we reach that point, then that's when we'll kick off the competition. So that's 100 registration of interest, I should say. Great question. Thanks, Dan. Anyone else or any other questions from Dan?
Are there any specific types of businesses that, other than those that you said being unethical, that you don't think would be appropriate?
Well, I think we've got two widely differing businesses on the call today, and I would say that both of them could qualify. I think the only business that we wouldn't look at is either the R&D is taking too long. They can't generate sales. I guess if I was to think about how much sales we'd like people to make over the year, if they're at 4K monthly recurring revenue, and we'd like to 4x that, so it'd be at 16,000 a month. So the business has to be able to grow and make significant cash. So an R&D or a corner business isn't really going to cover that. The investor is looking for the VC investment prize provider is looking for a company that can become a company that's worth 10 million, 100 million in the future. I think we did also say that it needs to be a legitimate ethical business. So if it's, so anything that's illegal or, we don't really want anything that's too controversial.
Lastly, where can people go to stay up to date with how it progresses?
So the URL at the bottom there, thestartuprace.com register is where people can register their interest, and then they'll be added to our newsletter. So we'll be able sending out information, inviting people to have calls in the future. And also at the back of this, we'll be going to be running another event on the preparation program. So how can our preparation program help people get up to the £4,000 monthly recurring revenue as quickly as possible? And so please do watch out for that as well. And if you're in that category, if you aren't, as I said at the beginning, there's two buttons on the page that that people can click on. We can either click on the black one if they're at 4K a month each month, or the preparation program if they're not quite there yet. And so the idea is that yeah, we want to help as many people get ready for the startup race as possible. Okay. Unless there's any other questions, we could I'll stop the recording.
Yeah, can I just ask, James, so with the type of business that I've got, it's it kind of goes in fits and starts. So it's not necessarily that, you know, your criteria of £4,000 a month recurring. I mean, it's the sort of thing that will get there, but because with theatre shows in the past anyway, it's always been run in seasons. So you might do like you know, a week's run here, or a 2-month run there, or so I don't know whether a business like this would fit into that category unless we manage to get the streaming you know, portion potentially. That could be sort of like a regular monthly recurring. So yeah, it was just, yeah, I mean, I'll sign up for the preparation thing anyway, because we're not at that £4,000 pounds a month anyway. But yeah,
well, I'll probably say that the £4,000 monthly recurring revenue is a way that we try to identify the value of the company.
yeah,
And because if a company is only worth, you know, it's a brand new company, it's hasn't really got much revenue, it's difficult to get it up to the valuation that a VC would be interested in 12 months. And so you might have, you know, if you've been around for a while, you know, there's all sorts of different ways of valuing your company. And, you know, the seasonal nature of your business, you know, as might not meet or fit exactly with our monthly description, but your company still could be worth at the right valuation for you to take part. And so we'd probably need to have an offline conversation about that.
okay, yep,
Yeah.
no problem. Okay,
Do you have
sounds
anything
good.
to add to that, Dan? No?
Nothing more from me.
Okay.